think like Black Mirror crossed with a bit of American Horror Story with a little sprinkle of Ratched, and that pretty much sums up how weird and downright fucking crazy this movie. What is up, people? Welcome back or to another video. For those of you who are new around here, welcome. I'm Jade, the Child-Free PT, and I'm super grateful to have you come and join us. So, as you can see from the title, we're gonna go into the Hulu movie Clock, which I caught up with over the weekend. So there will be spoilers in this video. So if you have not watched the movie yet and you do not want it to be spoiled for yourself, then just click out of it and come back later on, because I'm going to be speaking about what I think deep down the movie was actually about, other than the obvious. Now, this was definitely this is like a horror thriller, psychological thriller type thing, and it is a little bit jumpy as well. For those people who don't like those kind of movies, then I would suggest you don't watch it. However, in terms of like what the actual movie was about, I just felt that I had to come on here and do my bit and talk about this because it was just so mentally messed up. That is why I thought it was like, it really reminded me of like American Horror Story Asylum, like a little bit of Ratched as well with Nurse Mildred. She wouldn't have looked out of place in this movie for sure. In fact, Sarah Paulson should have totally been called up for this movie. She would have fit right in, just how weird it was. Sorry, I don't mean that in a weird way, but she would have definitely fit right in. So cut a long story short, we've got Ella, who's the main character. She is just turning 38, and it's not that she can't have kids, it's more a case of like, she explains in the movie that she just never had any maternal instincts, she never had any urges, and she kept thinking that throughout her 20s and 30s that it would just happen, but it kind of didn't. So what she did is she had this conversation with her doctor, because of course her parents, well, her dad in the movie was going on and on at her. Also, her friends were like, oh, what do you do with yourself? You know, what do you do with all your spare time? But you know, this is the best thing that's ever gonna happen to you. And bearing in mind, this was a very successful professional woman with a really great career, a massive house, loving husband, the whole works, and yet everybody was obviously pinpointing the fact that she did not have children and pressuring her. So upon visiting her doctor for a checkup, she explains that she just never had these urges and she thought that they would just happen one day and she would wake up and just want a child, but it still hadn't happened. So her doctor suggested that she take part in these clinical trials, which will help her develop these urges, because supposedly, and this is what got me about this whole movie, it was like so mentally and emotionally manipulative, It was just more a case of, instead of just saying, oh, you know, okay, fine, you don't have any maternal instincts, it's okay if you don't want them, it's okay if you don't want kids. It was more a case of them trying to make her feel broken and make her feel like there's something wrong with her, which is basically what society does to women these days who say they don't want children. It's like, oh, there's something wrong with you, you need help. And in this movie, they described her lack of urges for bearing children, similar to basically having depression, which I found really, I was like, whoa, you're overstepping there. Like, can you imagine me going up to a depressed person and saying to them, can you just try and be happy? You know, like, it's just unacceptable. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't know what's happening with my voice. But anyway, so she takes part in these clinical trials, and it is nothing short of disturbing mental manipulation, therapy sessions where they try and like figure out why she doesn't want them. Like, why don't you want them? Do you think you're scared of pregnancy? Do you think you're this? And do you think you're hanging on to childhood trauma? And all of this like really intrusive shit, which basically I'm pretty sure most women in my audience have probably experienced at some point in their lives from someone, let alone their doctor. So imagine like your fucking doctor's talking to you like this. I'd fucking sack them immediately. I'd be like, don't compare my lack of urge for children as depression or a hormonal imbalance. Like, don't patronize. She ends up going through all these clinical trials just to have the urge of a baby. So she just did it to get baby fever. Imagine going through all of this. So she goes through the trials, it's all this pill popping, all this therapy sessions, basically gaslighting and manipulation to high heavens. And she ends up just acting really funny afterwards. Like, her husband's like, why are you acting up? Like, you're acting really funny. Like, her friends are like, oh, what's gotten into you? Kind of all this stuff. And it just makes me think the whole way through is like, the moral of the whole movie was like, if it's not broke, don't fucking fix it. if you have a nice, happy life and you're enjoying yourself, you love your career, you love your freedom, you love your money, you love your family and your partner, don't try and stick an oar in it and try and fit in just because you don't have an urge to do something that your friends and family are doing. And that just made me think of that throughout this whole movie, because she actually had such an amazing life. She was obviously a lovely, beautiful woman, successful career, and people are like, and she just obviously felt this pressure and was like, oh fuck it, I'm just gonna do it so people can get off my back. And that was the absolute saddest part of this. Also, she could just feel fucking baby fever, was beyond me. And out of all of that, she ends up losing pretty much her husband. I think she lost her career, her job. She basically turned pretty crazy. She had this obsession with eggs. Like she would get up in the middle of the night and just suck eggs. Like, what the fuck? That this is all the hormone pumping that they're giving her. And she ends up killing her dad in a fit of rage and jumping off a cliff when the police go and find her. I mean, I don't know about you, but that kind of doesn't really sound worth it to me, just to get baby fever. Like, not even the conception or like the pregnancy or the healthy baby at the end. Like, this is just for her to wake up and be like, oh, got a bit of baby fever. Like, how fucking pathetic can that absolutely get? And the deep, dark side of all of this was, what made me think of this is the obsession I think that people have with the female anatomy, fertility, women's ovaries and their sex organs and their reproductive organs. Like, what is this fucking fetish that people have these days with women and their biological clock? It seems more fascinating to some people than anything else in the world, and I don't get it. I mean, we're talking, this has been happening since the beginning of time. I mean, when someone gets pregnant, it's not, I mean, it's fascinating to an extent of like, you know, a human can come out of another human, but in all honesty, it's nothing new. Like, it's not like a new record's been broken or some new thing has been invented or something. We've been doing it for years. I don't understand the fascination. It just made me think there's this creepy obsession out there with what other women are doing with their bodies or not doing with their bodies. And I just found it really fucking disturbing the whole way through, that the whole movie, this poor woman was basically gave into all the pressure, had to put her foot down, had to change her whole lifestyle and go through all these trials and fuck knows what else, because people were like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And that was it for me. I was kind of like, wow, I think beyond the whole biological clock and beyond the fact that she was pushing 40 and beyond the fact that she said that she didn't want kids, is the fact that you're just fascinated with other people's reproductive systems and sex lives. Like, people need to keep their fucking business and nose out of other people's bedroom gymnastics. Like, serious. As you can imagine, not one person mentioned anything to the husband. Nobody pressured him into having any children. He was just going about his life, and no one at any point congratulated Ella on her career and the projects that she was leading and, you know, the events that she was running. Not one of her friends, no one in her family ever said, oh, you know what, you're doing an amazing job, you must be really happy, you're probably earning a pretty dime as well. Nope, none of that, absolutely none of that. Instead, they just highlighted and honed in on the one thing that she wasn't doing or that she had no interest in doing. And that just kind of, unfortunately, does sum up reality and society to an extent as well. But if you have watched the movie, let me know down below what you thought as well. I'd love it. I obviously love hearing from you guys as well. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a massive thumbs up, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.